the manifestation of someone feeling empowered or enabled in their life. So all the ways that they express that come out as our privilege, like always being listened to or always being supported, and then like going out into the world and maybe like feeling like your car is entitled on the highways, like your car has every right to be there, and that has more than just a right. You know what I mean?
Or like everyone wants to listen to your anecdotes.
So it can manifest itself in so many ways, and often it comes out as like confidence. Like when you go out on the street and you have confidence walking in and out of stores, like that's privilege. Or if you go to a job interview and you feel confident about who you are, you know, that's a privilege.
I would also maybe add that in the position of privilege, you might not even feel empowered. You assume that this is how it is. You know?
Yeah,
like it's invisible to you, it's masked because you have always been privileged. You don't know what it means to be oppressed.
I think left-handed, right-handedness is like a really great example because our desks, you know, in class are right-handed desks, and like our scissors are right-handed. Everything is basically constructed for a right-handed world, and we don't choose.
The right-handed person goes into that world, is in that world, and is like,
this
takes it all for granted.
Yeah, right-handed people assume that the world is normal and it's not socially constructed for their benefit.
Class, to pick up from last week, and if you did your reading, I'm going to continue from Husserl's idea of the perception of the object, which must be given really, whereas in the imagination, the object can only be given irreally. All irrealities of imagination, such as night.
Professor Dan is so dreamy. I try to listen, but I stare into those eyes all day.
Ends by irreality. What is the ontological distinction between the imaginary and perceptual worlds? Did I say hand up?
I'm wondering if those don't exist in reality because they don't exist in the mind box because they're not.
I am completely lost. I have no idea what was going on.
Almost as if the form has taken over. The phenomenology has taken over the ontological. Plato might have something to say about that.
Well, I think to answer that question, we have to think about Husserl's ideas of fiction. Yeah, I just love talking about this stuff and like theorizing, and I found it super fascinating.
Great point. I think Husserl would go on himself to say that fiction is the source. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to compliment that I think they're simplifying it a little bit too much.
The simplified version was already complicated as hell for me, and then she made it even more complicated, and I don't know.
That when they are grasped, we can realize that it's not only imagination, but possibility from that imagination.
Well, I'd like people to think about that distinction that she just made, about naturalism and about fiction, about the ambiguity. Okay, I saw a hand up over there.
So does that mean that phenomenology would negate the value of naturalism in total?
Yeah,
well,
I think that's what the graph shows.
Right. The phenomenology itself never negates the ontological. You can't have phenomenology without the ontological presence, the thing. So the night has a body, but our understanding of the night is purely phenomenological. It exists outside of consciousness.
But the devil does not have a body.
Good point. Good point.
So the professor didn't go where I wanted her to go. I wanted to like really delve into what the essence of phenomenology is, and I feel like we've been skirting it.
So we see the requirements of the phenomenological method, which led Husserl to acknowledge imagination as one of the most vital factors in the intuition of essences. By the way, for those of you who are not participating, remember that it's 20% of your grade.
You know, now I'm really frustrated. I think I'm going to have to go to her class, to her office hours, and, you know, and talk to her about it because I think that's unfair. You know, but I'm kind of scared of going just because I don't want her to think that I'm not trying in the class. So this is gonna be hard.
Yeah, it's the same, like 3 students that talk, and the only times that those other students have said anything, it's been like not helpful, you know.
There was like some really great discussion going on. Yeah, I mean, I think some people like probably didn't do a reading or something, but
I was on the cover of one of the alumni magazines with Mawr, who's a dark-skinned Latina, Shirai, who's a light-skinned Latina, and Stephanie Tran, who's Asian, more specifically Chinese, and then me, who's white, and it was like, oh, just look at the little like rainbow of race right there, and like I know that's why we were chosen. It wasn't, you know, it's strategic the way they do it, and I understand that colleges are businesses, but I also think that they need to understand that like students have emotions and they impact that with their admissions material.
How do you feel like Bryn Mawr feels about East Asian students or Chinese students?
Yeah, I've heard mixed things. I kind of like thinking of them as sleeping giants, you know, people you see all around the place, people that have this obvious presence there, but you also still think of as background. And I think a lot of people think of them as that.
And I think about, you know, all of the many times where I feel like I've personally been used by the college for advertisement, to send materials to alumni, to send, you know, to put stuff on YouTube, to send materials to prospective students, to give open campus address, to give the convocation address. So I think all of those things.
Jeez.
I know. And so I think about all of those things, and it's difficult for me, I think, because I wonder how much of it is my own sort of abilities and what I do, and how much of it is wanting to have a student of color on the face of the campus.
Stop sort of just using students of color for their face value. We are, you know, number 5 in terms of racial diversity and number 3 in terms of socioeconomic diversity, although, you know, we've discussed what the hell does that mean?
you know, if some people are not being treated well or not thriving or are not feeling like safe and nurtured in this space, then it doesn't create the diversity that we are seeking and that we boast so much about as a campus and as a college.
What danger is it to you that somebody wants a safe space without seeing it as self-segregation, if that makes sense?
We're talking about walls, yeah, quite basically we're talking about the Bryn Mawr walls, for example, right, or the prison walls, but there's also the metaphorical walls that we all sort of live in, right? Cliques, posses, cultural identifiers, you know, regional identifiers about from the West Coast, East Coast, South Coast, North.
Whenever we had a conversation about Ferry House, it seemed like administration and most students weren't aware of sort of its importance or the, you know, Bryn Mawr's explicit racial history.
Like Bryn Mawr, as an all-women's college, can understand the importance of like having a separate space to gather and to feel like you're a part of a community, whereas the rest of the spaces on campus originally excluded these groups. So.
I feel like this might be a little dangerous, and I feel like white people, you know, get really scared when their status is challenged.
so much cognizant of like the institutional discrimination that goes on at the high school and college level. I think probably because like I didn't want to see it.
A lot of people might not feel comfortable participating without even realizing that they don't feel that their lack of privilege is why they feel discomfort, or conversely that they feel so comfortable participating in class because they are privileged.
I don't feel like I have to catch up. I feel like sometimes I feel excluded from like learning, not necessarily excluded, but not exposed to like tools of power, like, you know, like codes. To be quite honest, I don't feel like I would be able to navigate this, I don't know, this white world, that's how my mom calls it, if I didn't have white mentors.
I was like, oh really? And she's like, yeah, I thought you were rich. I thought you were really rich because of the way you speak. And I was like, whoa, I'm complimented and also concerned.
Yeah.
It's so complicated to name what is privilege in a way that's black and white.
I still don't necessarily know how privileged I am, and like I'm a first generation college student and I work 5 jobs, but like I'm also from the suburbs of California and my sister paid for me to fly home for Thanksgiving, so I feel like I'm just sending these mixed messages, and so I often feel like there's conversations I can't join because of that, because I'm not sure where I lie really, and I know different people think differently about how much privilege I have.
Like, don't have to worry about those things at all. I've been being a good student, like go to good school, and my parents was able to afford me to come here to get the best education. I cannot say like I'm the most privileged one, but I do have more privilege than a lot of people.
You know, I'm a minority, but at the same time, it's not like I'm looked down upon or like as if I'm of a lower class in some ways, right? In so many different reasons. You know, I don't have the history based in slavery and in the USA, and there's sort of a tendency to look at East Asians as people who aren't of lower socioeconomic status.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard, I guess. I feel as if I'm really in between all of it.